Morning, guys. Happy Tuesday. So we're back to conditional sentences today. We're going to learn the last three kinds that we'll see. But before we started, I wanted to recommend a show in case you're bored or have extra time on your hands. But you might have heard of it. It's called The Chosen, and it's a series about the life of Jesus of Nazareth. And I had heard about it, but the other day one of my professors, the guy who's doing my New Testament class, warmly recommended it, and so I checked it out, and I would like to do the same for you. It's very good, produced and funded completely outside of Hollywood, I guess. So it's all crowd funded. If you look up the cast and the people producing it and directing and all that, almost no one has a Wikipedia page. So they're not part of the Hollywood establishment, I guess, which means they can make a movie that tries to tell you the truth about the life of Jesus. And it's really good. They take some artistic liberties with the stories, but all of it's scripturally based. I can vouch for that. I guess, it's not perfect, but very good if you're looking to meditate on the Gospels while you're stuck at home. Check out The Chosen. You can find it online. So, like I said, just wanted to recommend it. I'm a few episodes in and I'm totally hooked. So that's good. Now, conditional sentences. Let's just quick review the ones we've learned so far. So present simple, we had present indicative and protasis and apodosis. Past simple, any past tense indicative in the protasis and apodosis. And you just translate those as is. Then we had future more vivid, so future indicative in both the protasis and apodosis. So if I study, I will do well. We had this future more vivid with an emphatic protasis, and this one was kind of tricky, but it's a future more vivid, except that the future indicative in the protasis has been replaced by a future perfect indicative. So literally going to be something like if I will have studied, I will do well. We're just going to translate it like a future more vivid though. If I study, I will do well. And then late last week, so Thursday, Friday, we got these three trickier ones, starting with future less vivid, so a more uncertain future. And this was present subjunctive in both protasis and apodosis. Present subjunctives in both makes future more vivid, and we were going to translate that should do, would do. So if I should study this evening, I would do well on my test. Okay, and again, it's uncertain future. Present contrary to fact. Now this is, again, don't get tripped up, just follow the formulas, right? It's all in that Google Doc. But present contrary to fact is going to be imperfect subjunctive in the protasis and apodosis, and we're going to translate it as were doing and would do. So if I were studying right now, I would be getting smarter. If I were doing something in the present, but I'm not, then something would be resulting from my actions, but they're not. Okay, that's present contrary to fact, and that's all we've learned so far. So that's a quick review. These last three we're going to call past contrary to fact, mixed future, and mixed contrary to fact. And now these two mixed conditionals are going to be the trickiest, I guess, to remember, but you'll see when we translate them that it's just like mixing and matching protases and apodoses from other kinds of conditionals. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll take a look. So again, go back through this same document with all the conditionals written out. It's complete now, and maybe eventually we'll get a chart so they're all in a more condensed place. But go through the first six on your own, and now we're looking at past contrary to fact. So here's how these are going to work. Pluperfect subjunctive in both protasis and apodosis. Pluperfect subjunctive in both, and we're going to translate it had done in the protasis, would have done in the apodosis. So we're keeping with the same examples we've been using. Si ad fuisset, bene fuisset. Both pluperfect subjunctive. If she had been present, it would have been well. Okay? Contrary to fact, but in the past. Clara fuisset, si magnum librum scripsisset. So she would have been famous if she had written a great book. And then si libros seius legises, plura intellexises. So if you would have read his books, you would have understood more things. Again, if I would have studied last semester for midterms, I would have done better. Would have, or had, would have. If I had, pardon me, I said that wrong. If I had studied last semester, I would have done better on midterms. But it's contrary to fact. You can't change it. And let's just keep track of, again, as many ways as you can think to sort of organize these in your minds. Which are the conditionals that use subjunctive in protasis and apodosis? Same kind of subjunctive. So we got present subjunctives in both. That's going to be future less vivid. Imperfect subjunctives in both. Present contrary to fact. Past pluperfect subjunctive in both. Past contrary to fact. Okay, and notice the subjunctive is definitely used to add uncertainty or even impossibility to these things. Okay, so that's past contrary to fact. Now we got mixed future. So these last two are, again, it's like you have a piece of two different kinds of conditionals. So let's see if we can figure out what mixed future is using. So present subjunctive in the protasis, future indicative in the apodosis. And we'll translate it should do, and, pardon me, I messed this up, should do and will do. Okay, so what are the two halves of this conditional? Present subjunctive in the protasis. Well, let's think. What uses a present subjunctive in the apodosis? Future less vivid. So we've got the protasis of a future less vivid conditional, and then future indicative in the apodosis. That's like future more vivid. So that's why it's mixed. We've got the protasis of a future less vivid, apodosis of a future more vivid. And so, like logically, or as far as meaning goes, I would say mixed future is somewhere in between a future less vivid and more vivid. Let's think this through with how we translate it. So we're going to use should do and will do. So si ad sit, present subjunctive, bene erit, future indicative. If she should be present, it will be well. Clara erit, future indicative, si magnum librum scribat, present subjunctive. She will be famous if she should write a great book. And si libros eius legas, present subjunctive, plura intelleges, future indicative, third conjugation. If you should read his books, you will understand more things. Now let's think about the relationship between the two clauses. So in a future more vivid, we say something like, if I will study, I will do well, or if I study, I will do well. Now, the protasis is pretty certain in the indicative. If I study, I will do well. That, and in a future more vivid conditional, the apodosis is the logical consequence of the protasis. So the whole thing's pretty certain. Now, future less vivid, both clauses are uncertain, right? They're both in the subjunctive. If I should study, then I would do well. So if I should study, implying that I probably won't, then I would do well. But even the apodosis is up in the air because the protasis is not likely to happen. Now this mixed future, again, is somewhere in between. So if I should study, still some doubt or uncertainty about the protasis. If I should study, then I will do well. But that apodosis is more sure, it's more solid in the indicative. And I think that's the way to think about it. So mixed future. Now last one here, mixed contrary to fact. Mixed contrary to fact. Same idea, it's going to be two different halves of conditionals we've already seen. So we're going to have a pluperfect subjunctive in the protasis and imperfect subjunctive in the apodosis. Let's think about what's going on. It's very similar to this mixed future. So a pluperfect subjunctive in the protasis, that's what we just learned. It's the protasis of a past contrary to fact. Conditional, so had done. We've got the protasis of a past contrary to fact, and then imperfect subjunctive in the apodosis. Which kind has an imperfect subjunctive in the apodosis? A present contrary to fact, so would do. Remember, present contrary to fact, were doing, would be doing. So if I were, If I were studying, I would be getting smarter. Past contrary to fact, if I had studied, I would be smarter. I would have been smarter. Okay, we just got a mixed here, so we're going to translate it. Had done for that pluperfect subjunctive apodosis, and then would do for the imperfect subjunctive in the apodosis. Examples: si ad fuisset, pluperfect subjunctive; bene esset, imperfect subjunctive. If she had been present, if she would have been present, pardon me, it would be well. Clara esset, imperfect subjunctive. Si magnum librum scripsisset, pluperfect subjunctive. She would be famous if she had written a great book. And then last one, si librus eos legises, pluperfect subjunctive. Plura intellegeres, imperfect subjunctive. So if you had read his books, you would understand more things. Let's just think about the difference between this and the other contrary to fact conditionals. So in the present, what's going on? If you were reading his books, you would be understanding more things. It's contrary to fact, so neither clause is happening. Neither clause is factual, but it's in the present. So if you were reading his books now, you would be understanding more things now. It's all happening now, which, I mean, think it through. That implies it could be changed. So it's contrary to fact now, but it could, the sentence could be made to be opposite of what it means. If you were reading his books, even though you're not, and you could be, you would be understanding more things now, even though you don't, although you could. Past contrary to fact is it's all imagined in the past, so there's no changing it, right? If you had read his books last semester and you didn't, and you can't change that, you would have understood more things for the final, but you didn't read, so you didn't understand more things. Mixed contrary to fact just mixes them up, right? So it's almost like protasis, pluperfect subjunctive. The protasis is in the past, but the apodosis is happening in the present. So if you had read his books in February, you would understand more things now in April. Make sense? Okay, and really it's definitely a matter of memorizing these like formulas, like we've been saying. And if you can recognize a sentence as a conditional, the best thing you can do is forget about trying to translate it right off the bat. Liam, sort out the verbs first. So what I would do is if you recognize a conditional, take a look at, find the protasis, find the apodosis, and then identify each verb, identify the verb in each clause, and then you can just plug it into one of these formulas and identify it. And that's more or less what I'm going to be having you do for homework. So this will be a tricky homework assignment, but it's not that bad if you slow down. So I give you a sentence, and they're all sentences from that Google Docs. So the sentences are familiar because we've been using them. And for each one, what I want you to do is name the type of conditional. So if it's a future less vivid, if you see present subjunctive in the protasis and apodosis, future less vivid. And then in parentheses, I give you a different type of conditional to change the one in Latin too. So I want you to retype the whole sentence in Latin as the new kind of conditional. So let's say you ID'd it as a future less vivid, and I want you to change it to a present contrary to fact. You're rewriting the Latin sentence, but remember, all you're doing is changing the verbs, because the only difference between a future less vivid and a present contrary to fact is the tense of the subjunctive. So if you had that example and you ID'd a future less vivid and you wanted to change that future less vivid to a present contrary to fact, all you would do would be to make the verbs which were present subjunctive, make them imperfect subjunctive. So you're going to be working a little bit with subjunctive morphology, but mainly with IDing these conditionals. And that should be a good way to end on these things. And tomorrow's going to be a mix of some new case uses I think I'd like to do, and then working on translating. And I'll give you some tough sentences to try to translate, and we'll do some together and all that. So getting kind of toward the end of new stuff. So that's exciting. And then we can get ready to read Caesar. So have a good rest of your Tuesday. See you later.